What's up, everyone? Serge here, Jason over there.
Hello.
We are Buzzhive Marketing, and we are doing our last installment of Top 10 On-Site SEO Issues. I know this is not the most exciting topic, but this is like the vegetables of your meal. You have to eat them in order to grow, and it's just they're very essential parts of developing a very successful online presence or online business or following, whatever you're trying to promote. On-site SEO is where everything starts. Whatever you do outside of that to send people to your website, the on-site SEO is what will enhance that, whatever work you do, or create a hindrance when you're considering how you show up in searches, so on and so forth. Today's our last one. I wanted to kind of start out by saying we're on all social media websites like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Not all, but those 4 main ones that we like to use. If you have other ones that you want to suggest to us, send us a message. We'll check it out. Follow us, like us, share these posts if you like them. If you find the resource page that we just updated on our website, tools and resources, buzzhive.marketing/tools and resources. Check that out. There's a bunch of awesome new things that we added. We added things that are completely new features, and we just added new resources to our existing areas of the page. So without further ado, Jason, take it away.
All right, and this may not be the most exciting thing to listen to or go through, but it is, like Serge said, it's the vegetables, it's the nuts and the bolts that everything begins and ends with your website. So the on-site SEO has got to be dead on. So let's get this presentation started, and here we go. So the top 10 most common on-site SEO issues, that's what we're in right now. Quickly, I'll review what we've kind of gone over. We looked at just about 1 million websites, no exaggeration. It was just right around 1 million websites. And we took percentages of the errors that we saw. We saw 50% duplicate content, 45% missing alt attributes for images, 10% broken internal images on sites. These are some of the main issues that we're seeing on sites. And we saw 35% of websites had duplicate title tags. We talked about that. 30% had duplicate meta descriptions, and 25% had missing meta descriptions. Those are bad things to have on your site, specifically when we're talking about what the search engine looks at. Last time we talked about broken links, internal and external links, and how to combat that. Today, we're talking about our last piece, and we're primarily talking about optimizing and organizing the content on your site. So we're talking about heading tags today, the H1 tags, H2 tags, H3, H4, all that. And then we're talking about low text to HTML ratio, talking about making sure that your site has valuable content versus just code on your site. So that's what we're looking at today. We've seen that out of all the sites we looked at, 28% of the sites had low text to HTML ratio, meaning it was all about the aesthetic and the code of the site versus any real content, which may not affect your user, the person coming to the site, but it definitely affects what the search engines see when their robots come to the site. Because as we talked about in every episode, the robots are the ones making the decisions to send people to your site. And if they have a bad experience, they're not going to send anybody else to your site, especially if they can't see what the site is about. So let's talk about that first. And remember, everything that we talk about is based on what Google wants to see and what the search engines want to see, and what Google says that their ultimate goal is to deliver valuable content to users. They want the user to have a good experience. Lack of information or information hidden behind code and images lowers a site's value. Likewise, disorganized content offers a poor user experience, thus lowering the value of the site. if the search engines have a poor experience, they're not going to send users to your site. But if they do send users to your site and they have a poor user experience and they leave your site right away, we talked about bounce rate in the last episode, you're not going to have those same people sent back to you, because Google is not going to offer you as a valuable resource if they don't have a valuable experience. So let's look at the first stats. We saw that 28% of the sites that we looked at had low text to HTML ratio, meaning that there is more code on the site than there is actual content. In relation to that, 18% of the sites we looked at had low word count. Again, more code than there is content. So if someone comes to your site
and they that again, you're breaking up. There's bad source. Can you say that one more time? That last section.
The whole thing?
No, not the whole thing. Just the last few sentences that you.
So the 18% of the sites that we looked at had low word count, meaning that there was more code than content on the site. So if you have a beautiful site and people are coming to look at your beautiful site, they see what on the front end, everything looks pretty. But if there's not really any content for them to interact with or have a valuable experience from, they haven't learned anything from your site, then all the prettiness doesn't mean anything. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. It just doesn't help anything. But specifically for a search engine, if they come to your site and they see only a little bit of value in the way of content and everything else is code, they're not going to, one, know what your site is about, but two, they're not going to see you as something valuable, so they're not going to put you up as the most valuable search engine result, or the search result. The search engines, if they don't see value, they're not going to put you up as a valuable result. So how do we combat this? A low text to HTML ratio can be a sign of a poorly coded website. If the search engines see that you're primarily all about your code and your HTML, it can look like you have a poorly coded website, because you don't need a ton of code to make a proper website. So they're going to think you're a poorly coded website, meaning that your value is low, meaning that you're not a valuable answer. So they're not going to offer you as that correct answer. It could high HTML versus low text could mean that you're trying to hide text, and this is what spammers do. We had a couple of years ago, we were dealing with a website. It was a client that had pharmaceuticals on their website, and they wanted to promote a certain pharmaceutical. It was called HCG, and Google had very strict guidelines on this. So you had to get approved to even talk about HCG on your website if you wanted Google to offer you as a search result. Well, so we went through that whole process, got approved, but there were other companies doing the same, promoting the same information, but they didn't want to go through the process of becoming approved. So what they did is they had a website that talked about weight loss, because that's what this pharmaceutical supposedly helped with. And so they would talk all about weight loss, and then inside images, they would hide text all about HCG, but not actually put it in the content on the site, trying to circumvent the search engine robots, trying to hide the content that of HCG that they weren't approved to write about or to promote on their website, and trying to trick Google. Well, if all the search engine sees is a bunch of images hiding text and content, they're going to think that you're a spamming site. So you definitely want to avoid that. Also, high code and low text is an indicator of a slow site, and speed is a very important SEO factor. If your page loads slow, then you're not a valuable site, because you're wasting people's time. And so a slow site is a deterrent for the search engines to put you up as the best possible search result. So what's the fix for these? Well, you can remove unnecessary code to reduce page size and increase speed. You can move inline scripts like JavaScript or Flash or inline styling or anything else media scripts or anything like that and styles into separate files. So they're not loading directly on the page, they're loading elsewhere. And so you don't have to load everything at one time. You can load the page first, it will load quicker, and the code is not directly on that page. So there's more content versus code. And then you can add relevant on-page text where necessary. Content should be the first thing that you have on your site or on any page. So let's look at that a little bit closer, improving that low word count. Google is known to rank content with more depth higher, and longer content is one indicator of depth, especially if you avoid fluff. Just having 1,000 words in your content doesn't necessarily mean that it's good content, but longer content is definitely one of the indicators. That's the first indicator Google looks at. So you want to make sure that you've got long and full content, but also valuable content, not just a bunch of fluff. You should also do anything you can to give your content depth and make it more valuable for readers. Usually when people talk about content being more in-depth or make it more valuable or more engaging, they think about videos and photos and sound clips and infographics and things like that, which are all great tools. However, if you haven't optimized those pieces, like we talked about a few episodes ago, you're going to block the search engines from knowing what your site is about. You can definitely optimize a video and images and those different things to tell them what that media is about. But if you can take the extra step of adding more content around those pieces, around the infographics, stating the same information that's in the video or in the photo or in the sound clip or in the infographic, putting that same content around those pieces will help, one, raise your low word count. You'll have more words in there, and explain what's happening on the page. So content is king, is what everyone always says. That's just kind of the phrase used around SEO. But you've got to have content, and you've got to have good content surrounding your code. You've got to have code, otherwise your site, you don't want an ugly site, because an ugly or unuser-friendly website is going to cause people to go away from your site. So you've got to have that taken care of, but your focus needs to be the content. So not just massive content, but we also want to make sure that your content is well organized. And that's where our next numbers come in place. We're going to talk about the heading tags, H1 tags. 20% of the sites that we looked at have missing H1 tags. 20% have multiple H1 tags. H is for heading, if I haven't already said that. And 15% of the sites have duplicate content in heading tags. So what does that mean? When you look at a website, this is our website right here, you can see we've got a heading tag that says online marketing right on our homepage. When you look at the code, you can see that online marketing, where we selected it, has this H1 tag wrapping it. So at the beginning and then a closing one right at the end, online marketing. This heading 1 tag, the H1, there are H2, H3, H4 that help organize your page, and we're going to look at those a little closer. But the H1 is what this whole page should be about. Specifically on your homepage tells the search engines what the rest of your site is going to be about. So our whole site is about online marketing. So that's what our H1 tag needs to say, is online marketing. Also, when we talked about title tags a couple of episodes ago, you want this H1 tag to match your title. And if you look up here, the title of our page does say online marketing. Same with our H1 tag, online marketing. So you want to make sure that you've optimized that. 20% of the websites we looked at don't even have this, don't even have an H1 tag, and 20% of them had multiple H1 tags. If every one of our pages on our site talked about online marketing, when you can see in our navigation that we have marketing packages, we have web design, we have mobile apps, we have tools and resources. If our mobile apps talked about online marketing, that's true, it kind of falls into that basket, but the mobile apps heading 1 tag needs to be mobile apps because that will be the title of that page. So you want to make sure that your H1 and your title tags match and that all the content that comes after matches that as well. So let's look at that organization a little bit more. So hopefully you have tons of content on your page, but what we're doing with the header tags is we are organizing the content. So you can see in this first column here that we have a header 1. And this is just like an outline that you did in 3rd grade in school. Anytime you had to do an outline and indent with bullets and all that kind of thing. What we're doing is we have header 1, and that's what our outline or our page or our website is all about. Header 1. Then you organize your content accordingly. We've got 3 other sections under our header with header 2 in these 3 different sections. You could have content in that first section, and then you could subdivide that second section into areas with header 3s and give them titles and then do the content under there. When you look at this middle column that is set up correctly, we have the heading 1 tags as cupcakes. So this website that we're looking at is all about cupcakes. So the header, the title of the page is cupcakes. The next section, we've got 3 sections. We've got cupcake history, cupcake types, and the future of cupcakes. Then we're going to have content in each one of those sections. In the cupcake history, we just have some straight up content. It could be, well, it needs to be text, but then you might have a video in there. You might have an infographic. You might have some images, but all the content is going to go under that cupcake history section under the heading 2. Then we have another heading 2, cupcake types. And then that's divided into classic cupcake types and trendy cupcake types. And then you've got the content in their respective sections. And then we have a 3rd section under cupcakes for about the future of cupcakes. And then of course you're going to have content under there as well. What so often happens for a variety of reasons is this 3rd column. We have a heading 1. The page is all about cupcakes, but then 20% of the sites we looked at had duplicate header 1 tags, cupcake history and cupcake types. This page cannot be 100% about cupcakes and 100% about history and 100% about the types of cupcakes. We need to organize this well. There may be another site or another page on the site that is all about cupcake history, but that there should be one heading about that, and then the title would be about that, and then all the content underneath would be specifically about that one, heading 1. What happens, especially with content management systems, is the user, the person that, not the user that is viewing the site, but the person who's building the page, uses these heading tags, heading 1, 2, 3, and 4, purely for formatting. And so they just like the way or the size of the title, the way it looks. So they just use that just for visual aesthetics. Instead, what's happening is they're confusing the code and making the page look like it's disorganized. So you can see under this cupcake types, we've got a 3rd heading 1. And then instead of organizing that section with heading 2, or really a heading 3, if this was set up properly, they've just taken the content and made a strong title, a bold title. Well, bold can show some emphasis for a specific word or a phrase in content, which is good, but it doesn't necessarily organize the content into the way it should be, like in our first column. So you can see that the disorganization that can be caused with heading 1 tags makes your site lose value because you haven't given the information in a clean and concise way. Unlike this first column where everything is well organized, just like we learned how to do in our 3rd grade class, how to create an outline, right? Did you have something to say?
Yeah. The reason why Google does this, if you look at the layout right side by side, for the user, their whole goal is to provide great websites, to have great information, that look great, that function well, and they are easy to navigate or easy to look at or read or understand. That is the main goal. It's not just, oh, we want to create, you know, a bunch of obstacles for people to jump through so they don't over SEO their site or they cheat the system or whatever. Their whole goal is to provide good quality websites. So when you organize, if you look at the second column, not the one where it says heading 1, heading 2, but if you look at the one where there's the example, it's a lot easier to navigate than the one that the last column, because the last column has, yeah, it's there, it's all there, but when you're just scanning a document, it's a lot easier to scan the correct one versus the incorrect one. And that's the whole main idea of, you know, on-site SEO, is to provide the organizing all of your data and your photos and your layouts in a way where it's easy for people to navigate and get information that you're trying to pass on to your clients or customers.
Absolutely. And so, and again, this organization helps the search engines know immediately what your site is about, as opposed to them having to guess. The more guessing the search engines do, the less valuable your site is. You want to hold the hand of the search engine and give them a tour of your site.
And that's like, we looked at a website a couple of days ago where, in theory, it was a really cool looking website. It had all kinds of, you know, unique graphics and this and that and the other, but it was really hard to navigate. Like, in theory, this is a really cool, funky looking website, but it's really hard to figure out where you're supposed to go to find things. So you're basically looking around to figure out how do you get to the points where you need to get to. So, you know, there's a big trend of, you know, I think, and I don't think Squarespace is bad, but Squarespace has a lot of these themes that are very like, here's a picture of a coffee cup, and it says your coffee house, your coffee house name, and that's it. But what does that tell a search engine? Nothing. So you have to kind of be careful with having just design in mind. We've said this numerous times. Design is great, but you can find a sweet medium between the two, where you can have a well-designed website that looks great, that functions, that has really unique function and you know, features and appearance, but still has the nuts and bolts that you need to have a successful website in the eyes of search engines.
Absolutely. So the last two things we're going to talk about today don't necessarily have, well, they still talk about content, but it's the last kind of smaller things that affect most of the sites. Everything else, there are a lot more issues that go into optimizing your site, the on-site content, but it turns out to be like 10% of the sites had this, 5% of the sites. We wanted to hit the top things that people are having issues with. So these last two things are super important, but they're kind of standalone issues that we're going to look at. And so 15% of the sites that we looked at had too many on-page links. The reason this is bad is because what we're trying to do is we're trying to diversify links. So you want to have links on your site that point to other websites or other places on your website. But what happens is there's a fine line of optimizing and over-optimizing. So if you put too many links on your site, it can dilute the value of your page and send most of your traffic away from the page. So if Google sees that your site is about a specific keyword, they send people to your site, and then someone clicks on a link and goes away from your site too quickly or too often, that page is going to have a super high bounce rate, and then that dilutes the value of your page. You can keep these pages relevant and have good links, and your page and your site can still rank well. But again, there's that fine line. And what people do, or at least 15% of the websites that we looked at, is they try to over-optimize. They put too many links, and then that page has no value anymore. You want to make sure that your site stays the most important as far as content and value goes. The last thing that we're going to talk about today is that 12% of the sites that we looked at have missing language declaration. Again, this goes back to making sure that you are giving all the information you can to a search engine so that they don't have to guess. If they have to go and find information about you, you've already wasted their time and they already think that you don't have value. If you can direct them and give them a tour of your site exactly the way you want them to see it, then you're already winning the game, because then all they have to see is your content and not wade through a bunch of broken code or a bunch of unoptimized areas of your site. So the missing language declaration helps do a couple of things. It helps inform the browsers, whatever browser you're using, of the content's language. What that does is it ensures that whoever is reading the content, they're going to be able to see it in their preferred language. It also ensures that those using text-to-speech converters hear your content read in the correct dialect of their native language. Not just language, but the dialect as well. Our browsers are incredibly smart, and so there may be a Latin American country that, depending on where you are, you're going to hear the content on a site differently so that things can be optimized the best way possible. It also helps, so that's on the user side. It also helps with geolocation and international SEO. What that means is that every time Google does a search, or Bing does a search, or Yahoo does a search, if I search for a dentist, they're going to see that as dentist plus my location, wherever I'm looking for. Wherever I'm looking from, unless I am very specific about dentist and then I give a location. But every search is all about location. Declaring language properly helps with geolocation and international SEO, meaning it already pushes your site into a specific location. 90% of the sites that we work with are all about the local search. And so this is a huge piece that's going to help the search engines know your location right off the bat. And so if they know you about your specific location and someone is searching from that specific location, that language declaration is a huge piece of putting you up just by location, even before content plays a role. So again, with everything we're talking about, we remember that Google's ultimate goal is to deliver valuable content to users. They don't know that your content is valuable if they have to wade through a bunch of brokenness to get to your content. You want to offer up your content, not in a big black trash bag with your name written on duct tape. You want to
Sorry, just kidding.
You want to give them that.
It's my website. I follow it.
You want to give them that information in a well-organized presentation folder like you did in college so that they know exactly what you're all about. Serge has said this before, Google is grading you just like you got graded in school. The problem is that if you perform well and you get a low grade, that means Google's not going to put you up as the best possible search result. So optimizing this is the best way for you to get known. So this is the end of this series that we've done. We actually, like Serge said at the beginning, we have created a tools and resource page on our site. And so if you go to buzzhive.marketing, you can go to tools and resources. It's up here in the navigation, or you can just go to tools-resources. And you can see when our next meetup is going to be. This is actually today's meetup right here. But you'll be able to find when our next YouTube meetups are. And then specifically with what we talked about today, we have a link right down here at the bottom for you to do an audit on your site to see how you're performing with your on-site SEO. So you can put in your competitor and a keyword that you want to be found for. And you can also add a competitor's URL to see how your competition is doing. We have already the first 3 episodes of this series, and we're going to add today's right here as well. And then we have some other very specific tools, third-party tools that you can use to help track everything that we've talked about in this series. We also have a full resource library right here with all kinds of online marketing things. But we'd love for you to go and check that out and start building your SEO up. So, because we want you to perform well and
you heard this, and you know, it's like with anything. You heard it a million times, but you still don't really know what you're doing, or you don't know where to start, or you don't know which one do you attack first. Always just feel free to just send us a message, send us an email, send us a Facebook message, LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. We're not going to bill you. We're not going to, unless you sign up with us. Then we will bill you. But the goal of what we're trying to do with the resources and tools section is to just give people resources and tools. If your business gets to the point where you don't have the time or you don't want to do that stuff, we will gladly do that for you. Or you'll always do it, and that's the goal for us with these whole live chats, is to, with the tools that are out there, we're just organizing them on our website for you to use, and you have us as a resource if you have questions. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email. Check out our website. Follow up on these live chats. We're gonna have a completely different one next time. About completely different stuff. So that will be in a few weeks, next month in October. And we're probably going to go to twice a month starting October. This month was kind of a busy one because we were in the same place. We were in the same city because we were actually a coast-to-coast company, and we have offices in California and Georgia. So feel free to reach out and follow us on all those social media websites.
We'll see you in October.